Welcome to my Madness, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're going to be taking a look at this DC Direct Trinity Superman. Now, I don't remember exactly, but I believe these came out, I want to say around the mid-2010s. And they kind of did a whole line of these. They did the Trinity, obviously Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman against Ra's al Ghul. And I always thought these were really cool looking figures. I don't know why I never picked them up. But I didn't, and I stumbled across this guy on eBay for what I thought was a really good price, and so I picked him up. And so today we're going to ask the age-old question for collectors when it comes to picking up older figures: is it still worth it for a modern collection? So we're going to go ahead and crack this guy open, see what we think, and go from there. All right, so here we have him out of the package, and just as he stands like this, I love this look for Superman. It kind of reminds me of a cross between like the animated series Superman from the 90s and 2000s with kind of a very classic, almost 1940s, 1950s style Superman. Just, you know, out of proportion, to be honest. Really, really large shoulders, arms, upper torso, really thin waist, smaller legs, and a smaller head. It's just kind of this weird kind of very Art Deco style Superman, which I really like, which is, you know, honestly what the Superman animated series was. And he gives off that vibe, even though this is not, you know, an animated Superman. He just has kind of that look and that stature, which I really, really like. Now, to get into articulation on this guy, because I know that's what some people are going to be concerned about, there's not a lot of articulation going on here, to be honest. And look, if you're somebody who's really, really big into articulation, this is probably not the figure for you. Now, for me personally, articulation is not the most important thing. I do like action figures, so I like, you know, toys that actually like move a little bit. I'm not into statues. However, maybe it's just my age because I grew up with, you know, mostly like 5 POA figures, but you know, because of that, I think articulation, having, you know, 21 to 30 some odd points of articulation is not as important to me personally. So for me, this is fine, because basically what we've got here is we've got standard back and forth hips, right? We've got standard single joint knees, and they do have a little bit of a ratchet in there. We've got no waist articulation, no torso articulation. We do have kind of these ball joint shoulders that don't come up far, but they do rotate and everything. We've got single jointed arms that only come up that high. And then we've just got rotation on the wrist. Now, we do have a ball peg on the head, but it doesn't do a whole lot. I mean, you can get a little bit of tilt here and there, but mostly what you're going to get on this guy is going to be rotation more than anything else. No ankle, you know, articulation at all. So really, really basic as far as the articulation scheme goes. That does not bother me, might bother you, I don't know. One of the things I love about this figure, other than just kind of the general presence of the figure and that kind of style that I like, is I like what they did with the different finishes on the figure. I love that the S is shiny. However, the rest of the paint is kind of, you know, a matte finish, except for you got a nice shine on the boots too. Like, you know, maybe they're made out of leather or something like that. I really like that. I don't know why. Again, you may not. It's all personal preference when it comes to this type of stuff. But it just looks really, really good to me. I like it a lot. We got the S there on the back. The cape is pre-posed, but it's very, very flexible. It's not a hard cape like the pre-posed McFarlane capes and stuff like that. So it doesn't bother me as much. I wish it wasn't pre-posed, but it does actually kind of work with this look for the character for me. I don't know. I'm less bothered by the pre-posed cape on this figure than I am on some other figures. But look, overall, I think personally it looks fantastic. I don't mind the articulation scheme. I love the deco on it. I think they did a really good job. I love that head sculpt. That head sculpt, I mean, if you look at that, that's just a really, really kind of classic you know, again, 40s, 50s era Superman head sculpt, and I like it quite a bit. So I think it looks really good. But I want to do some comparisons here so that you can kind of gauge whether or not this is something, if the articulation doesn't bother you, is this something that might fit in well with your collection? Is it something that might work in other displays you have with other characters? All right, so to compare it to a couple of Mattel products here, two of my favorite Supermen in my collection, actually. On the left, we've got the Mattel Multiverse. This is the Dark Knight Returns version of Superman. And on the right, we've got the kind of classic, more classic Superman from DC Universe Classics. This is the one where he has the kind of red glowing eyes. I like that figure a lot. I don't know why. And you can see this new guy here from DC Direct kind of falls somewhere in the middle between the two of them, as far as just overall kind of height and bulk and that kind of thing. A lot of it just has to do with the style that they're going for with these different figures. These are three very, very different style of figures, from, you know, Frank Miller art to more classic or even animated look here to more comic book accurate here. Very different styles, and I think that accounts for most of the differences between these. But I still think this one would work great on a shelf if I just had nothing but, you know, a Superman dedicated shelf. It'd still work perfectly with all the rest of them. All right, now I don't have the other figures in this Trinity DC Direct pack, but you know, this is kind of probably my favorite Batman and favorite Wonder Woman that I have. Of course, Wonder Woman is from DC Icons. The Batman is another Mattel offering. I can't remember if that one's DC Superheroes or DC UC. I think it's DC Superheroes, but I could be wrong. It's been a while. But here we can see Superman is taller than both of them. I think he should be taller than Batman. This Superman's probably a little too tall for that Batman, but I think this Superman next to that Wonder Woman, as far as height goes, works perfectly. But again, if you have a mixed collection like I do, this gives you an idea of what to expect. And then lastly here, I just want to show you this figure with a couple of imports here. On the left, we've got the Mafex Steel figure, and on the right, we've got a Revoltech Red Hood from the Arkham game. I think both work really good here. Superman should be taller than Red Hood, and I liked it. This Steel is a pretty decent sized figure. He's got a good height on him, and they're pretty close to the same height. Obviously, again, the style of these figures is all very wildly different between the three of them, but just in general, I still think they'd work well on a shelf together. All right, so let's talk price and whether or not it's worth it. I picked this guy up for $20, plus I think I paid $4 shipping on eBay. Average price I see him go around for is in that $20 to $30 range. At 20 to 30 bucks, is he worth it? I'd say hands down all day. As long as you don't mind the articulation. If you're just looking for a really good Superman for your shelf, I think this, without a doubt, is a great looking Superman. And I'm very, very happy to finally get a hold of him. Now I want to get the Batman and the Ra's al Ghul and the Wonder Woman as well, and maybe just do a display for that. I don't know, but I really like this figure. I think it's for me, being the type of Superman fan I am, I like that kind of old school, you know, Fleischer era or George Reeves era kind of Superman. And then that they mirrored in the animated series. I think it looks great, and I think this is a good stand-in for that. So really happy with what they did here. I think it's worth it. I think if you're a Superman fan, you're definitely going to like this. The only downside, again, is going to be the articulation, but to me, and I think to a lot of people out there, especially if you're going for a specific look, it's probably not that important, as long as you have something that looks really nice on display, and I think this works perfectly for that. So that is it, guys. I appreciate you watching. Let me know in the comment section down below what you think, and always remember to enjoy your collection.